Hey, Mike. What? Who's got next?
What's good, y'all? It's your man, Hezo. Welcome back to the Blacktop, where I always got next, you feel me? So the trade deadline has passed. And I'm gonna be honest with you, man, there was some deals that went down that I just did not see coming. As y'all know where I'm going with it. People around the league thought that this was gonna be a very quiet trade deadline, and we saw the exact opposite of that. Probably one of the most exciting trade deadlines that we've seen over the past couple seasons. I'm gonna break every trade down, say if it's a W and an L for the two respective teams or three teams included. So we got a lot to dive into. As always, if y'all like this type of basketball content, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Help me grow my channel out. Drop a like on the video, and let's get right into it. Now, I'm not gonna go into crazy depth for every single trade that went down today, but I am gonna cover pretty much every single one of them and talk a little bit about them and, give my, my thoughts and opinions on them. And I want to start with the trade that happened last night, not the Kevin Durant one. I'm going to talk about that one next, so y'all hang tight for just a second. But I want to talk about the D'Angelo Russell trade. And in my opinion, the Lakers got an absolute finesse. They finessed the Timberwolves, the Jazz, whoever you want to call it. They got an absolute dub with this trade. When you could turn basically Russell Westbrook in a lightly protected 2027 first round pick into D'Lo, who's on an expiring deal, that's fine. Jared Vanderbilt, who's a very solid defensive player, and Malik Beasley, who everybody around the league knows that this dude can shoot the basketball and he can get hot at any given moment. This gives the Lakers the depth that they need. It gives them better point guard play. This was a trade that I give the Lakers an absolute huge W on with adding depth. Now the Jazz get they get Russell Westbrook back in the deal with that 2027 protected first round pick. The Jazz are expected to buy Russell Westbrook out. We know that. That's going to come. Where he goes, we don't know. I know the Clippers and the Heat were interested, but we ain't talking about the buyout market right now. And then for the Timberwolves side of things, they get Mike Conley and a couple second round picks. And honestly, this is a deal I don't understand from the Timberwolves perspective. I know that they were trying to move D'Angelo Russell, but in my opinion, this was not the move for what you're trying to do and get to the playoffs. And a 35-year-old Mike Conley and a couple second round picks, and you give up a 26-year-old D'Lo, even though they're both on expiring deals. To me, this is a big head scratcher for the Timberwolves end, and I give them an L. The Jazz, whatever, they've been doing the rebuilding thing. They were going to lose Malik Beasley at the end of the year anyway, and they were shopping Jared Vanderbilt either way because they're in a rebuilding stage. They're looking for as much draft capital as possible. So I also give them a W in the trade. They're taking on Russell Westbrook's contract. Again, they're going to buy him out. But the big winner for this trade was the Lakers, and I don't think it could be debated. They came up huge, getting three very good quality players. They get defense, they get offense, they get point guard play, they get a little bit of everything. And I think Rob Pelinka definitely deserves an A+ for this trade. Now, the big one that obviously everybody has been talking about all day. It's been all over ESPN. It happened at like 1 o'clock in the morning. Your boy was already asleep. I woke up to like 5 text messages. I was tagged in Twitter. I was tagged in on Facebook, Instagram. Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns. Suns give up Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, and 4 unprotected first-round picks, 2023, 2025, 2027, and 2029. Now, honestly, I think this is a W for both trades. When I look at it from the Suns' perspective, they get the superstar player that they have been wanting. They've had their eyes on Kevin Durant since he requested a trade, back in June or July or whenever it was. And I really think that the Suns, this was a relatively light package in my eyes. Y'all could disagree. But when I look at the package that the Timberwolves gave up for Rudy Gobert, and I look at the package that the Suns gave up for a Kevin Durant, I know he's 34 years old. I know he's injured. But come on, man, it's freaking Kevin Durant. 4 first-round picks, that's fine. This is a team that is in win-now mode, and they are a legitimate threat for a title this season. Now, the biggest question that I have with the Suns with this move is their depth. They do not have a strong bench going forward. It's going to depend on if they are healthy. And they're actually, Jay Crowder was also involved in that deal, which he got flipped to Milwaukee. I'll talk about that trade here in just a second. But the Suns really are just lacking depth. They may have to look to the buyout market for a couple. There's going to be some names floating around in the buyout market. They may have to look because they really are going to look to they're going to have to look to upgrade their bench because they're definitely a championship contender, but it's going to be hard to beat some of those deeper teams like a Denver in the playoffs, even with a Kevin Durant, even with a Devin Booker, with in my opinion, a washed CP3, but they kept DeAndre Ayton. It's a lot of mouths to feed, but at the end of the day, is their depth going to be enough to be able to carry them to a title with the Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on this roster? I think it's going to be enough to at least get them to the Western Conference Finals. Win a championship? We will see. Now let's talk about it from the Nets perspective, right? The Nets just came out like 2 days ago that said that they were just going to retool the roster around Kevin Durant, and now they come out and blindside everybody with this blockbuster deal. But I ain't gonna lie, man. Like, the Nets did what they were supposed to do. Giving up KD and Kyrie, like, obviously no package for KD is going to be sufficient enough because you're not getting a star player in return. But at the end of the day, man, they got draft assets. They got a very nice young defensive wing in Mikal Bridges. They got a nice young, well, he's not really young. He was a little bit older rookie when he got drafted in Cam Johnson. But he's excuse me, he is a sniper, man. He can shoot the basketball. And when you get all those draft picks along with what you got with Kyrie, for the Kyrie deal, the Nets are finally starting to move in the right direction. And a lot of people may disagree with, me on this take, but I think the Nets came out with a good enough trade package to set themselves up for the future and just kind of build and just start from scratch, because that's what the Nets have to do at this point. They're in a rebuild, and they got to wipe the slate clean, wipe your hands. You know what I'm saying? It didn't work out with the big three, with James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant. That's going to be probably a video for a later day. But just, you wash your hands with it. You start fresh. You start over. You hit the reset button and you move forward. And I like this move for both teams. So the next trade I want to talk about is a guy that was just involved in the Kevin Durant trade, and that's Jay Crowder going to the Milwaukee Bucks for 5 second-round picks. And this isn't going to be a trade that I dive too much into. I really like this move for the Bucks. It gives them just more depth, more defense, another 3-and-D wing that they can add to the bench. Maybe they start him at, alongside Giannis, which I don't know how that fits. Once Chris Middleton comes back healthy, and I know he's been playing, but he's still on a minutes restriction. The Milwaukee Bucks, man, they do it again. They get quality players for low, kind of assets. Those second-round picks don't mean nothing to the Bucks, man. They're going to be a championship contender as long as Giannis is there. And this is a move I really like for the Bucks. I give them a huge W on this. Again, adding depth. They're probably going to be right with Boston for the Eastern Conference Finals. The Eastern Conference is going to be very interesting now that the Nets are probably out of the running. It's really a toss-up, and it could go a lot of different ways in the Eastern Conference, especially in the West. Now that, Kevin Durant's over there with Kyrie on 2 different teams, the Western Conference is going to be really interesting, but I think the Bucks and the Celtics are the 2 clear favorites in the Eastern Conference, and with them getting Jay Crowder, that's a huge, huge W for them. Cam Reddish, my boy, is finally freed from the New York Knicks. He goes to Portland. In return, the Knicks get, I think, Josh Hart. I think that the Knicks gave up a first-round pick and Cam Reddish in return for Josh Hart. And this is another move that I like for both teams. I like the fit with Cam in Portland. I think that he can finally maybe be maximized to his potential, playing alongside Dame and just fitting in with this team. Nice player off the bench. Maybe you start him at the 3. I think Cam is going to fit very nicely with Portland. They got a really good culture there, and they got a really solid starting 5. I give that trade a W for the Trailblazers. Now on the Knicks side, I also give this a dub for them. You get Josh Hart, who's a nice 3-and-D player. He's an excellent rebounder at his size, only a 6'4" player. You give up only 1 first-round pick, and it might have even been protected. I'll have to go back and double-check. But again, just adds another guy to the Knicks rotation where, Cam wasn't even playing. Now you add Josh Hart to an already relatively deep Knicks team, and I think the Knicks get a W for this trade as well. Get a rotation guy and add to their depth. They're going to be looking good, and they're going to be a solid playoff team. Come playoff time. I think they're going to probably finish around maybe 5 or 6 once playoff time comes. The Raptors make a big move and get Jakob Poeltl from the Spurs. They gave up Khem Birch in a 2024 protected first-round pick, and I love this move for the Raptors. Now, with that being said, I'm questioning a little bit the direction that the Raptors were going at the deadline, because OG was in trade rumors all season. Fred VanVleet was in trade rumors. Even Pascal Siakam was in trade rumors. Gary Trent was in trade rumors, and they stayed pat and didn't trade any of them, with adding Jakob Poeltl, who was drafted by the Raptors, was included in the Kawhi Leonard deal. Now he's back in Toronto. They're expected to give him a contract extension at after the season. I like this move for the Raptors because you can kind of now keep this roster intact. You now have an official 5. You have a legit center. Now you can move Pascal back over to the 4, OG back to the 3. I really like this move for the Raptors. Now, I don't know how it's going to play out this season. They're probably not going to make the playoffs this season. They can maybe push for a low play-in, but I don't know if excuse me, I don't know if I see them getting into the playoffs again. But overall, it is a W for the Raptors. Now for the Spurs, I mean, this was pretty much just a kind of a dump. They got a first-round pick in return. You get Kem Birch, whatever. They were really looking for a first-round or 2 first-round picks in return for Jakob Poeltl. They knew they were going to lose him in free agency. He is an unrestricted free agent. I do expect him to re-sign with Toronto. So either way, again, another good trade for both teams. So this next trade I want to talk about is for my Hawks. And I'll be honest, it was looking like that we weren't going to make a move. And then we get the breaking news. James Wiseman included in a 3-team deal. The Warriors send off James Wiseman. They gave up on him. They were tired of waiting. He didn't fit with the Warriors. They move him in the 3-team deal. He goes to the Pistons. Atlanta gets back Saddiq Bey, who, in my opinion, this was an absolute dub of a trade for the Hawks. And then the Warriors get 5 second-round picks from the Hawks in return. So you get James Wiseman goes to the Pistons. They now have a logjam at the center position. They got to figure that out. I don't know what really their mindset is with getting James Wiseman. I know that they looked at he has more upside than Saddiq Bey. It is what it is, but they still have a logjam at the center position. Atlanta gets Saddiq Bey in return, and then Golden State gets the 5 second-round picks. Let's start off with this trade move for the Hawks. I love it. I love this deal. This is a depth move, and you give up second-round picks. Now, a lot of Hawks fans out there I've seen on Twitter were saying, "Oh, we gave up 5 second-round picks. That's a lot." Listen, bro, it's really not when you think about it. How often has Atlanta actually hit on a second-round pick? How often does a second-round pick actually pan out to be a quality player in the NBA? I don't just mean a player, a low-tier bench player. I mean an actual quality rotation / borderline all-star player. It is very, very rare. We have not seen many second-round picks pan out over the last 10 years. I love this trade for Atlanta. It's a nice 3-and-D, not really 3-and-D wing, but he's a good three-point shooter. He's a versatile wing. He's athletic. He obviously can shoot the basketball. For the Hawks, this is a depth move. Now, I'm really curious to see how Nate now is going to do the rotation going forward. You kept Bogey. Obviously, you kept AJ Griffin. Does this push Jalen Johnson out of the lineup? It's to be seen. I don't know. We have to wait and see. But overall, for the Hawks, big dub. From the Pistons' perspective, I don't really understand this deal. They made a move, what was it, last year at the deadline for Marvin Bagley. They have Beef Stew down there. I don't really understand. And they also drafted Jalen Duren. So, and in my opinion, Jalen Duren is their center of the future from what I've seen. So I don't really understand this move from the Pistons' perspective. I like Wiseman's upside. I'm one of the people that's still high on James Wiseman. I think he just needs to be in the right. He just needs to be in the right fit and with the right team. But I don't think that's with the Pistons, man. I don't know. We have to wait and see. But they just got a logjam down there. So I question this move by the Pistons. I do think this is an L on the Pistons' end. Now, from the Warriors' perspective, again, I get it. But I think that they gave up way too early on James Wiseman. This was a dude that was a 2nd overall pick. I know he's had his injury problems. I know he has kind of struggled with the Warriors system. But I feel like they really didn't maximize the what they could have got for James Wiseman. Maybe his trade value was down, and I'm kind of oblivious to that. But I think a former 2nd overall pick who's still only 21, 22 years old, whatever he is, still has a high upside. I mean, the dude's 7 foot, can stretch the floor a little bit, shoot the mid-range jump shot, can finish inside, can block shots. I think they gave up on him way too early. It is what it is, man. The Warriors are trying to win now, and I don't really see that as a win now move because they didn't really get any picks, or I'm sorry, not any picks, any pieces in return. They got 5 second-round picks, which who knows what that's going to turn out to be. But again, another questionable move for me for the Warriors, so I do give them an L in that aspect. Now I'm going to stay on the Hawks real quick since I just talked about the Hawks. This was a minor move. We do get Bruno Fernando back in the trade with the Rockets. We get Garrison Matthews in return as well. We ship out Justin Holiday, thank goodness, Frank Kaminsky, and 2 future second-round picks. And I like this deal, man. I'm not going to lie. Bruno Fernando gets, a solid third center, gives us the depth. We get another shooter in Garrison Matthews. And we've seen that when this Hawks team has injuries, they really struggle with their depth. And that's been a huge issue this season is the depth. We now get 3 quality pieces in return. Didn't really give up much, so I like both of these deals for the Hawks. I'm not going to elaborate too much more on it, but I do like both of these deals. Now, even though with those 2 deals that Atlanta made, I think the biggest thing that the Hawks did today was my boy John Collins survives the trade deadline once again. And at this point, I really just don't get it. I mean, I know that they probably didn't get a deal that they wanted in return. So he is now safe on another trade deadline that John Collins survives on the Hawks roster. But at this point, man, you either need to commit to a trade or commit to keeping him on the roster. I'm going to leave it at that. But I will say I am happy that he is going to be on the Hawks roster, at least for the remainder of this season. So a very underrated trade to me that happened today was the Sixers getting the McDaniels brother from the Hornets. I like this kid, man. They gave up Matisse Thybulle. I think, where did Matisse Thybulle go? I think he ended up going to the Portland Trailblazers in a 3-team deal. The Sixers get Jalen McDaniels. Is it Jaden or Jalen? I'm not sure which one it is. I think it's Jalen. Jalen McDaniels in return. He's a nice 3-and-D wing. He's young. He's only about 23, 24 years old. He has a nice upside for a bench player, and that gives them a more solid depth that the Sixers are going to need going forward. He can shoot the basketball. He plays a little bit of defense. Matisse Thybulle is not really going to be missed. He has fallen out of the rotation so many times. He gives you no source of offense. He only is a defensive player. So I really like this move for the Sixers. Not a crazy eye-popping deal, but it's one of those under-the-radar moves that I really like because of it just adds depth to an already contending team. W for the Sixers. The Lakers continued to wheel and deal. Now, we saw they traded Thomas Bryant. I didn't talk about that trade earlier. So they moved Thomas Bryant to Denver. There was a report that came out that he demanded a trade after AD got back healthy and got back into the lineup because his minutes decreased and his usage decreased. So he wanted out of LA. They ship him to Denver. I can't remember his name back in return. He's a younger center and a second-round pick. They then flipped Patrick Beverley to the Magic and get Mo Bamba in return. I love this deal for the Lakers. You get another stretch big. He's not a great 3-point shooter, but he can stretch it out. He can definitely block shots. This is a move that I like for the Lakers. It gives them more depth. Patrick Beverley has not been good for the Lakers. He's been just a disaster all season. It has not worked out. And now they got their 2 guards. With D'Lo and Schroeder, they got their 2 guards, so they had no use for Patrick Beverley any longer, especially now that you still have Austin Reeves, and you have Malik Beasley. This was a depth move trade deadline for the Lakers, and I absolutely love this move with getting Mo Bamba to give them more front court depth, and just another huge W for the Lakers, man. Shout out Rob Pelinka, because he really did his thing at this trade deadline. Now, for the Magic, I get it. You didn't have really any room for Mo Bamba. You've been playing Mo Wagner. You've been playing Wendell Carter. They have a couple bigs that they like more than Mo Bamba. He kind of fell out of the rotation, with the emergence of Bobo and everything. But you get Patrick Beverley in return, and he's going to be a buyout candidate. So he's one of them guys that's probably not going to be on the team. So I get it from the Magic perspective. They couldn't really maximize Mo Bamba. He didn't really have a lot of trade value, so I get the move, but huge W for the Lakers. Now let's talk about the other team in LA with the Clippers. They get Eric Gordon. Finally, Eric Gordon gets moved from Houston, now goes to a contending team, finds himself in LA. The Clippers send out Luke Kennard. He goes to the Grizzlies, and then Danny Green goes to the Rockets. I think Danny Green went to the Rockets from the Grizzlies. And I like this deal for the Clippers because they do get another vet in that locker room now. It does add to their age that they already have in LA. But it gives them a veteran shooter who plays a little bit of defense. He's a little bit more well-rounded than Luke Kennard is. Luke Kennard's probably a better shooter at this point in his career, but Eric Gordon could still put the ball on the floor. He's a better defender than Luke Kennard is, and he's just a veteran presence. So I like this move for the Clippers. For the Rockets, it's whatever. I mean, they wanted to get off the Eric Gordon, contract. They've been looking to move him for the longest time, and another, kind of a whatever move for me for the Grizzlies. Yeah, you get Luke Kennard, which I don't really know how he fits into the rotation. I really would have wished they would have I would have liked to see them go after a wing like an OG, but they didn't do that. They settled for Luke Kennard. So I wouldn't give them an L, but I also wouldn't give them a W. It's kind of just one of those neutral trades on the Grizzlies end, but I do like it for the Clippers. I do give them a W, and it's just kind of a whatever for the Rockets. I give them a W just because they got off of Eric Gordon and sent him to a contender. Staying with the Clippers, they also made a separate deal, receiving Miles Plumlee from Charlotte for Reggie Jackson. Now, Reggie Jackson, again, is going to be another buyout candidate. I would like to see my Hawks go after him at that backup point guard position. I wouldn't be mad at that. I'm just saying. But Reggie Jackson is going to be, I think, one of the higher profile buyout candidates. We'll see where he ends up landing, but I actually like this move for the Clippers. Again, it gives you now a solid backup center. They were lacking a lot of size once Zubac goes to the bench. Now you get a formidable, another 7-footer who's not a great offensive player, but he does have a pretty good passing vision for a big man. He's a solid offensive rebounder, and as a backup big, I like this move for the Clippers. I don't mind this move for the Hornets, even though they're going to buy Reggie Jackson out. They were looking to move Miles Plumlee because now you can fully kind of commit to Mark Williams as either the starting center or the backup center and give the young guys minutes, in which we've been waiting to see. I've just been very confused on the Hornets' direction. I was confused on the Jalen McDaniels trade, but I'm not really so much confused on this deal because, you know, Miles Plumlee is a little bit older. We knew he was going to get moved at some point. He was on an expiring deal. I like this move for the Clippers. The Clippers are also one of those teams that gets a W and improves at the deadline. Staying with the Clippers, I actually completely forgot about this trade until I just looked at my phone. The Clippers also get Bones Highland from the Nuggets. I think it was for a couple second-round picks. I'm not sure the exact number. Now, where does Bones Highland fit with this Clippers team? I'm not sure. He's more of a scoring point guard. I think they needed more of a facilitator to get Kawhi and PG the ball, but I'm not mad at this, man, because this gives them another scoring guard. I like this trade for overall for the Clippers. And again, the Clippers just a huge W at the trade deadline. Now for the Nuggets, we know Bones Highland kind of fell out of the rotation. I get it. It is what it is. I don't think they really maximized the trade value for him, but what trade value did he have? I'm not really sure. The Nuggets are going to be fine. I mean, they're still one of the best teams in the West regardless. They didn't really need Bones down there, so I like this move for both teams. You get a couple draft picks in return for Denver. It is what it is, but I do like this move for the Clippers. Even though it's not really what they needed at point guard, I think he still will fit in, and he'll make it work with Kawhi and PG. Couple last few trades that I want to talk about real quick before we get out of here. The Celtics get Mike Muscala from the Thunder. Not a bad move for them. They needed some depth at that front court position with Al Horford and Robert Williams both having injuries at the moment. Mike Muscala can come in as a nice third center, stretch the floor a little bit. That's really all he does, but he's played relatively well with the minutes that he's been getting with the Thunder. They only gave up, I think, maybe 2 second-round picks in Justin Jackson, so solid move overall for the Celtics. They're still at the top regardless. They didn't even have to make any moves, so I still give it a W at the end of the day. And then the New Orleans, the Pelicans get Josh Richardson from the Spurs in return for Devontae Graham and a couple second-round picks. Now, I like this move for the Pelicans because they get a nice 3-and-D wing, and they get off of that horrid Devontae Graham contract that did the Hornets give him that contract or the Pelicans? I can't remember who gave him that contract. But either way, they get off of that contract. They get in Josh Richardson, who is a nice 3-and-D wing, as I just said. So I like this move for the Pelicans. W for them. Spurs, it is what it is for them. Just accumulate more assets. They're not really worried about contracts. They'll take on bad contracts for first, second round picks, whatever. So I also give them a W for the trade as well. I'm going to pretty much leave it there, man. That is all I have for this trade deadline recap. I'm sure there was a couple other small deals that I did not go over. I know George Hill went back to the Pacers. Serge Ibaka ended up getting moved from the Bucks in one of the deals that I talked about. I'm not going to go too much into those because those aren't really significant moves that are really going to make too much of a difference in the grand scheme of things. There was one thing I forgot to mention, that TJ Warren was included in the Kevin Durant trade, so they also get TJ Warren back in Phoenix with Kevin Durant. So I think that is a dub for them. Gives them a little bit more depth that they are going to desperately need come playoff time. So I did forget to mention that earlier in the video. What did y'all think about this trade deadline overall? If you're a Hawks fan, Warriors fan, whoever fan, I want to hear from y'all. What did you think about your team not making any moves? If they didn't, a la the Chicago Bulls, I don't know what they're doing. But I want to hear from everybody out there. If your team made moves or didn't make moves, let me know what y'all thought about the trades overall throughout the course of the day. Leave a like on the video, and I will catch y'all next episode.